If you have a passion for something, you should follow that passion. That's something Lieutenant Colonel Dean Hall said to me in an over-the-phone interview I had with him, an interview that you'll hear in just a little while. When you have a passion or a drive to get somewhere, figuratively or literally, rarely is that passion fulfilled when working alone. Your family, friends, or coworkers will help you along the way. And that's the beauty of the Maine Air Guard. It's no different, setting our MAINEiacs up with what they need to succeed. School benefits, health benefits, professional education. You can fuel your goals with us, so to speak. Take those goals to new heights with a little help along the way. I'm Master Sergeant Andy Sinclair, and this is episode 43 of the MAINEiac radio show. We're going to talk to two individuals who have used the Guard as stepping stones to get where they are today, whether that's through schooling or networking, etc. Two individuals with drive and passion, one who's retired with a full career in uniform, and another who is still fairly early on in his career, but has already made a name for himself and is destined for great things. We're going to let them talk about their experiences, their advice, and their passion. First up, we have a new lieutenant, but he himself is not new as a MAINEiac. He was enlisted for quite a while before he commissioned. He's a University of Maine graduate. He is a DSG, or Drill Status Guardsman. He works for a company called Chimbro. Maybe you've heard of them. A very veteran-friendly employer. Here he is, Lieutenant Michael O'Brien. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from.
Up there with Chief Thurlow in Air Transportation Function, OIC, but really that basically just entails them kind of teaching me about the job, and having me offer what I know about, training coming from maintenance. That's a pretty strict thing they do down there. So just kind of putting in my 2 cents where I can, but really just trying to learn from everybody up there. They get a lot of experience up there.
Why is training so important in maintenance?
They get a pretty heavy deployment cycle, so you want to make sure you're always ready to go. General Roy always says, ready to fight tonight. So they definitely embody that down there. So trying to take that over to the air transportation function.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've worked with Chief Thurlow and they call those guys Grady and the gang. They are awesome. It's a crazy team. That's a pretty important job. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so they handle, like when we go on deployments, they handle the passenger side of the house, in processing everybody, making sure they have all the necessary documents, getting them on the aircraft on time, loading up all the baggage, any of their cargo that's going with them, making sure everything's documented, any hazmat, anything like that, making sure it's all ready to go and those guys are ready to do their job overseas without any hiccups.
Just like with maintenance is pretty important to keep up on that training, right?
Right, exactly, yep.
So you work with Chimbro. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been with Chimbro for 2 years now as a project engineer. Started out in Brewer working on an oil and gas furnace. It was a great project, pretty big for the state of Maine. Actually right over here in Brewer, building some furnaces and then actually shipped them down the Penobscot and then down around the Gulf up into Pennsylvania. So it was a long ride for those. Started out doing some piping engineering, any design changes and stuff. We'd work with the client, get it done, get it taken care of out in the field with the guys. If they were seeing issues or having issues with some of the material, we'd get that squared away. Kind of rolled over into the testing side of the house there. After everything was put together, had to go through and pressure test it either with water or with air before, we could sign off saying everything was good to go. So did that for a couple months. Then started to go into the paper mill side of the house, which is a huge industry here in Maine, something we all hold pretty dearly, provides a lot of jobs in some rural areas. So we did some upgrades up in Rumford. They're putting quite a bit of money into those mills, which again is great. It provides, it's a huge industry for us, whether it be loggers up north or, the western part of the state. It's a pretty tough commute getting down to Portland or Bangor or anything like that. So those 500 or so jobs at a mill is pretty big for that area. So we did some upgrades for them. That went great. The guys out there were awesome with Chimbro guys and the mill guys. I mean, it was just it was a good all-around experience. Then went over to Jay to help them. They had a little bit of a hiccup over there, so kind of helping them clean up, and that's still a little bit of an ongoing process.
The beauty of the Guard is that the majority of our force are traditionals. You can take the experience that you gain on the outside in your civilian workforce, and you can bring it into the military. I've always kind of looked at like our civil engineering squadron and how they do things, and you've got all these guys and girls that are gaining all this outstanding experience, whether it be electricians or structural or construction that way, or putting up sheetrock. And there's a million ways to do it. And then you come in here and you get to work with airmen and senior NCOs and officers, and they get to put their heads together and figure out the best way to do it. And I always thought that was pretty cool. Your civilian job with Chimbro, coupled with your military job in LRS as a new officer, it's very similar in a way from an outsider's perspective, to sit back for me to look and say they're both hands-on jobs. Would you say that for people who are traditionals, who have a good job like yourself with Chimbro, how does one play off of another? Like, is being good at one make you better at the other, and vice versa? Can you take the experience even if it's not really related?
Yes, absolutely. In reality, joining the Guard was probably the biggest thing I've done for my professional career. I'm in school for engineering. When I did it, it was about halfway done. Got a tour of the machine shop, and I just thought that was a great compliment to an engineer. A lot of times, coming out of school, you don't always have the hands-on experience, and that does cause some frustrations between tradespeople and engineers or office, whatever you want to call it. So having that experience was great. Seeing if you're designing a part, it may look great on paper, but when you go to put it in a machine, it doesn't work out the way you thought it would. Might be a couple extra steps you didn't think of when you're drawing that. So obviously there's those technical aspects that really help out both ways. But also just that, it's the level of professionalism that everyone has here. I say that's probably the biggest factor. If you come in, especially, 21, 22 years old, you never really had a full-time job, at least not that, has such a impact, on the world or even what you're doing in the job. I'm 21 years old, coming out of tech school. I'm making a nose landing gear bushing. It's a pretty crucial part. You're gonna trust someone to go, land an aircraft with a crew of 50 of your airmen on board. So, making stuff like that, it's a lot of responsibility for a 21, 22-year-old, something you don't typically get. So that's definitely a huge part, especially as a drill status guardsman, kind of taking ownership of, where your career goes. Those weekends, they fly by, so kind of get what you put in, getting all your training and all that stuff done. So really just, learning how to be a professional and kind of observing everyone around you. I was extremely lucky when I went in. Our NCOs, they were awesome at transferring knowledge and just being a mentor. If you're young and haven't been in very long, it can be a tricky place to navigate. A lot of terms, a lot of procedures and all that. So having a good mentor is huge. So I was lucky to see that, at my direct supervision level. And then as you go up the ladder, they were great too. Having a section supervisor come down and consult you on an issue that they're having on an aircraft, and then taking your word for what you're saying on a repair, and then kind of fighting for you on the other end when they're kind of discussing it all around, what time it's taking, what route you're going. So having them back you up there, that's huge. That's a kind of a confidence booster, especially when you're a younger airman. And then even on top of that, that was really my first experience with, officership, I guess you'd call it. The first and foremost, I think the biggest thing is just being present as an officer, walking around, getting to your different shops. That really just shows that you care. And then in maintenance, there are also a lot of technology was involved, really anywhere in the hangar now, just with everything that's coming out, and having them stand up there and, justify that stuff and, agree with you saying, this could help our Air Force, this could help our fleet, or help the Air Force wide, or help, right out here at the 101st. So I was lucky to have that when I first went in, and just kind of have someone to emulate, as my career went on. And that's kind of I kind of took that path, and a large portion of that was because of the leaders that I had.
So you're in a unique position because you came in to maintenance and you came in enlisted first. You had outstanding NCOs when you first came in. Like you said, they transferred that knowledge, but more importantly, I feel like, is that they enabled you, and they give you that taste of accomplishment, and they give you that taste of responsibility. And then when something turns out right, and it's kind of like fishing, you can either throw a lure in, you could either lose your $10 lure, or you could land a nice bass or something, and having that mentorship from your NCOs, you were able to land that nice bass and not have a taste of failure. And now being in the position that you're in, again, because you commissioned, and now you're in a completely different group, which is even cooler. Now you're in a position to be able to enable your airmen, and that's pretty awesome. Moving forward a little bit, like, what is your goal? Now that you've commissioned, what's your plan?
Right now, the main focus is just getting to learn LRS as a whole. Like we talked about, coming from maintenance, coming from a back shop of maintenance, I don't want to say tunnel vision, but it was pretty focused as far as what we did. Coming over to LRS really opened my eyes. There's some functions and stuff that I didn't even know existed. It's such a broad career field, and it really, helps the base as a whole in ways that you would never know if you didn't ask or weren't working there. So just kind of learning from all the subject matter experts in each field and just taking everything in as I can. Being a young officer in LRS is a little bit different than probably some other squadrons. You're basically just kind of a sponge for 4 years, and that's how they set up your advancement. So really just hopping around, getting to learn each function, what they do, what they have to offer, what role they play for the 101st, what role they play in the Air Force for deployments and all that. So that's kind of my immediate goal, and just take in as much as I possibly can.
When I think of like outstanding officers and outstanding senior NCOs and even NCOs within the 101st, like I think of obviously Chief Thurlow, and I think of Captain Cole and Major Stroop, and those guys are awesome. You were prior enlisted, you were in maintenance, you commissioned, you're now in LRS. You have the experience, you've got your 4-year degree, you work in an outstanding organization that's right here in Maine. And you bring that civilian leadership you gain from Chimbro, you can bring it here. Military leadership you gain here, you can bring it to Chimbro, which is pretty cool. Why do you think it's a good idea for, say, like an 18-year-old or a 22-year-old to consider joining?
Just the professionalism that's displayed out here. I think you can take that into any walk of life, whether it be engineering, teaching, logistics, anything, and it can be useful. I just think the pride and the responsibility that you have when you're out here, it all belongs to, you all have one mission, it's to keep the nation safe. So everyone plays a part. So when you take that and you take the training that you got to do on the weekends or come out here during the week, and you use that stuff and put it towards one main goal that all 1,300 or so people are working towards, you can use that anywhere. As an officer, especially coming from the enlisted side, my one main goal was to always, take care of your airmen first. That translates really well to downtown where I'm at now with Chimbro. Working with the tradesmen as an engineer, as an assistant superintendent or superintendent, your one main goal is to take care of your guys, your gals downtown. So whether that be getting them the tools they need, the supplies they need, before anything else. Obviously, you want to be knowledgeable at your job. You want to be good at your job. But I think if you take care of your airmen or your tradesmen or anything, they provide you with that knowledge that you need to succeed. So to me, that's what comes second. And that's another thing that, you really learn out here, especially coming from the enlisted side. If you have a supervisor or an officer that, really takes care of you, it makes you want to work, that much harder. So I think really that's the biggest benefit to me. Now, obviously, on top of that, you have the Maine state tuition, which is huge. Starting your career coming out of college, $60,000 in debt versus not having a payment at all. That's
seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a crazy benefit. And then on top of that, healthcare. Paying $200 a month versus $4, $6, $8, whatever it is. Another massive benefit. And then retirement too. So, I mean, really, those three things alone, if you weren't looking at any professional development, any leadership development, skills development, if you just alone looked at the financial benefits, those are massive. But then on top of that, to throw those other development tools in there, skills, leadership, all that, I mean, it really provides you with a whole package of skills and financial benefits that a lot of people on the outside don't get. So it's really a way to kind of launch your career off on the right foot. I mean, I couldn't recommend it enough to anybody out downtown, in school, anywhere, high school, college, out of college. I mean, it's got its benefits for everybody.
Not to mention the fact that you get to travel the world and see the world. I know LRS gets to go to some pretty nice places, and they also get to go to not so nice places, but that's the name of the game, and,
right.
And that's what you guys signed up to do. So
exactly,
it's pretty cool. But yeah, we appreciate it, and appreciate your time, and good luck in LRS. And if anyone's listening and has any questions about becoming an officer, maybe going from enlisted to being an officer, I'm sure you'd be willing to.
Yes, absolutely. Anyone has any questions at all, come on over.
Well, I appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Great, thanks for having me.
Next up, we have another interview, this time with Lieutenant Colonel retired Dean Hall. He was an intel officer, also a drill status guardsman, with loads of experience and drive. He's agreed to talk to us in an over-the-phone interview and share his thoughts on the Maine Air National Guard. Colonel, I want to say thank you for agreeing to come on to the podcast today.
No problem.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you come from, all that good stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm from Maine originally. I grew up in Jackman and finished high school in Bucksport. I went to the University of Maine, up at Orono, and there I got involved in ROTC. They had Air Force ROTC. It had just come on campus when I was there as a freshman, and so I became part of that. And I graduated in '84 and got sent off to intel school, and I did 6 years of active duty. And then I left in 90, and I believe it was 91 when I came on board with the guard base. It just so happened they had an opening in intel, which was obviously my specialty. And Colonel Vanetta-Stein hired me, and off I went to the races.
So how many years total did you do in the service combined with active duty?
With everything, just about 28, just under 28.
Were you a DSG for the majority of your time with the MAINEiacs, or was there some active duty time?
The whole time.
Really?
The whole time.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
Obviously, we had quite a few TDYs in there, but...
So as a DSG, especially as an 05, and especially as, you were in charge of, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering the terminology, but you were the top dog in the intel office. So what was that like? What was that like being a DSG, though?
Well, it was challenging at times, but lucky to always have good people in there. It certainly makes it a lot easier. And that's true of all the folks that, we brought in throughout the years. Bob Kinney, we brought in Sergeant Noyes. So different folks that came in all were able to do a great job. And that was a huge help to have good, solid people.
Yeah, there's no I in team sort of thing.
No.
So with your experience as a DSG and then also having a full-time career as a teacher, a middle school teacher, what was it like being a guardsman and utilizing the benefits that the Guard had to offer while still maintaining a full-time civilian employment? I mean...
for me, it actually, it worked out great. I had an extremely supportive principal. His brother, actually, my principal's brother was a retired Army 06 intel officer. So when he found out that I was an intel and his brother was an intel, and he was a very patriotic individual. I gave him a pin one time, a MAINEiac pin, and he wore that pin for years. So I could not have had a more supportive boss, and that made it just tremendously easy. If there were things going on up in Bangor in the weekend, and I needed to scoot out a little bit early on Friday, he made sure that I was able to do that. I never was questioned if I needed to go TDY during the middle of the school year. It was certainly a situation where he did whatever he could to support me in the Maine Air National Guard. That was Art Warren, so a great individual.
I think that sometimes, especially as an 18-year-old or 19-year-old or even a 17-year-old looking to join, specifically the Air National Guard, I think that sometimes is that might be a reservation that, hey, if I only want to be if I want to be a DSG and have a full-time career somewhere else in the civilian sector, how is my civilian employer going to support that that career choice, because on paper it wouldn't sound logical, right? Like if I go to a job interview and I say, hey, I'm in the Guard, I have the potential to deploy, I have 2 weeks of training I have to do, I got to sacrifice 1 weekend a month. On paper it may not sound that appealing, but in all reality it's the exact opposite. I've interviewed employers and supervisors for companies who have sat back and said they immediately want to hire members of the Maine Army Guard and the Maine Air National Guard because of their training and because of their perseverance and their tact, because they want those types of employees working in their organization. I think that sometimes is a disconnect for people who are looking to possibly join the Guard.
Yeah, it certainly makes it much easier on the member when they know they've got the support of their employer. And from what I've seen in my experience, 99% of the employers were awesome and really supportive of the Maine Air National Guard in whatever way they could be.
If you had an opportunity to speak to an 18-year-old who was kind of on the fence about joining the Maine Air National Guard because of the reservations of being, wanting to pursue a successful civilian career, what advice would you give that individual?
I would say if you have a passion for something and it's offered by the Guard, you should certainly follow that passion, because it'll work out in the long run. And as an 18-year-old, I know as I get older, and I say this to kids all the time, time's going to go by fast. If you do 4 or 6 years, it sounds like a long time, but it's going to go by extremely quickly, and you'll mature during that time. You'll meet great people. It'll create opportunities for your future, opportunities that you may not realize, but they will be there as a result of your experiences in the Guard. Even if you decide not to stay past your initial enlistment, it's an opportunity that as you grow older, you will look back at with fond memories, regardless of how long you stay. And it's a great opportunity not only for you, but you're supporting our state and the country. And I think it's just a great thing for young people to really consider and strongly consider.
Yeah, and I've told people the same thing, that I've had friends of mine that have been on the fence and who later joined. Same idea that between the insurance, the health benefits, the school benefits, the camaraderie, the sense of patriotism, the networking, and the fact that you're getting paid to travel the world and do your part and feel like you have a direct impact on protecting, like you said, our state and our country. And you can find similar jobs downtown with that sense of fulfillment. But there's a long history here, and especially since I've been in this job within PA and having access to old records and old stories and old photos. I mean, the history out here is just so rich for an 18-year-old to look to join. You're becoming a part of that history, which is pretty remarkable. It's
something you'll always be tied to. You'll always be tied to that unit, and that's something to be proud of.
You hear about these scenarios where the husband or the wife is deployed, and back home, during the middle of the winter, their spouse's furnace breaks, and they call the MAINEiacs, and instead of 3 guys showing up, 20 guys show up to help out, and again, you're going to get that. You're going to get that anywhere that has an outstanding team, as we kind of touched on earlier. If you have a good team and you take care of each other, that's going to happen. But it's just when you hear those stories, it kind of almost brings a tear to your eye type of thing. It's pretty cool to hear about.
Yeah, it really is. It's just a memory they'll always have. And even today, as I meet people, ladies and gentlemen, and who are 50s, 60s, and 70s who served. Even some of them only served for 2 years back in the draft days, and they'll still talk about those experiences that they had serving, for our country. So it's just a great experience.
And especially with somebody like yourself in your position, where you were being a lieutenant colonel while you were here, and you get to see these young kids come in, and you get to help develop them and watch them grow, which is, I would imagine, pretty gratifying.
Yep, it is. I saw a lot enlist and grow in their enlisted fields. I saw some enlist and move on to the officer ranks, and every one of them, I think did well, and we're happy with the choices that they made.
You've been retired now for a few years. Now, what experiences that you or skills or trades that you learned in the military during your time in, are you still utilizing?
The discipline of being organized and having to be prepared, and that's something that I think certainly I carried through the early part of my career, and as my career went on, just always being ready, doing the extra, getting in early, staying late when needed, being ready for whatever you need to be ready for. And I know technology-wise, being in the Guard was a big help to me. It seems like the military always was sort of at the forefront of new technology changes. I mean, I go back to the days where, the first emails were a big deal when I first joined, and I was serving down in Maryland. And, I think back to, the fact that we had one computer that could send an email, and what a big deal it was. You could send a letter to somebody, type it up, and it would show up, in another part of the world, and you could get a response. And now, of course, we do this with our phones. But so it sort of helped me that way, too, just, staying on top of things and sort of the newest technologies that way. But I think probably the biggest thing is just how to work with a diverse group of people, is one of probably the biggest thing I took, that I could relate to my profession on the outside. Because you do obviously have to deal with a wide variety of people. It's true in education, it's true in the military. And I think my military experience has really helped me in that way.
That's awesome. And again, I think that's kind of what people are missing when they look at and are entertaining joining the Maine Air Guard, is they don't, they may think it's like, oh, it's a second job. Like, who wants a second job? Well, it kind of is, and it kind of isn't, especially if you're, like yourself, who made an entire career of being a drill status guardsman and utilized what, the Guard had to offer, and that's huge.
It really worked out great for me. I just think, for any young person out there listening, if they are considering it, I think they really should seriously consider, come out, talk to some of the other recruiters, maybe visit a couple of the shops on base to see what's going on, talk to some folks their age. But I think it's an opportunity that should at least be strongly considered. Not saying it's for everybody, but for those, who think that it's something they are interested in, take that opportunity to come out and talk to you folks. And I don't think they'll regret it at all. And I know they won't. It'll be a great experience for them.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And I think I speak for everybody when I say thank you for your service. And
all right.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
So there it is. 2 interviews from 2 MAINEiacs with 2 totally different career fields and a whole wide range of life experiences. A premier organization that produces premier airmen. Remember to check us out on Facebook and Instagram, as well as our app and our website. And hey, if you're on Facebook, take a minute to head over to the Maine Air National Guard recruiting page and to give them a like. Maybe say hi to the recruiters. Show them some love. Maybe share their page with friends and family. Something to think about. So anyway, have a great weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Stay resilient. Stay relevant. Stay ready. And stay passionate.